The Last of Us almost had a prequel, Naughty Dog fantasy game teased again, FTC dissatisfied with Microsoft and UK developers support the merger, Sony accused of burying smaller games, Sony has an exclusive Superman game, all that and more in today's PlayStation news. Let's get to them. New PlayStation Plus catalog update. Sony has fully revealed the catalog update for PlayStation Plus Extra, Deluxe and Premium users after we got a sneak peek at the most recent state of play. They will be available to download on March 21st. On the game catalog you get Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection, Chia launching day 1, Rainbow Six Extractions and Immortal Phoenix Rising as part of Ubisoft Classics, Ghostwire Tokyo, Life is Strange True Colors and Life is Strange 2, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, Street Fighter V Champions Edition, Untitled Goose Game, Final Fantasy Type O HD, Rage 2, Neo The World Ends With You, and Haven. As for classics, there's Ridge Racer Type 4 from PS1, Ape Escape Academy 2 and Siphon Filter Dark Mirror from PSP. They initially reported Ape Escape 2 from PS1, but it was a mistake. And remember that on the same day the following titles leave the catalog: Monster Energy Supercross 5, Override 2 Super Mech League, Danger Zone, Dungeons 2, Ghost of a Tale, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, Velocibox, and Victor Brand Overkill Edition. So if you're playing or are interested in any of these games, it's your last chance to play them. The next update for PS Plus will be around March 29 when we'll learn the monthly games for April, although Sony already announced that Meet Your Maker will launch as part of that. I think it's a great lineup for Extra, but I'm not particularly excited about the Classic. You guys also think it's a great month with 55% thinking it's amazing, 36% great, 7% just okay, and 2% thought it was terrible. But what do you think about this game's lineup? Share with us in the comments. The Last of Us almost had a prequel. Speaking with Kinda Funny, The Last of Us director Neil Druckmann explained how they almost made a prequel for the series about Ellie's mom. He said there was a more full version of the story that went more back in time, that was going to be made into a video game not by Naughty Dog but by a different studio. Kinda Funny's Greg Miller even played a part in this as he was the one who introduced Neil to them, but in the end it didn't work out. Naughty Dog also wanted to make a motion comic about the story, but that didn't work out either, so the story was shelved until Druckmann presented it to series co-creator Craig Mazin, who was in love with it, and ended up being adapted for the last episode. Presumably part of the story is also what went into the American Dreams comic from Dark Horse and the Left Behind DLC. Druckmann also talked about their plans for the next seasons of the show and their next PS5 project, which we covered in Wednesday's video and you can check it here. Would you have wanted a prequel to The Last of Us? Let us know in the comments. Naughty Dog fantasy game teased again. While we'll have to wait to know about the next Naughty Dog project, some fans are bringing back the speculation on the fantasy game that may have been teased in part 1. If you didn't know about it, these were images found I believe in the University section on the Last of Us PS5 release that was not in the original or remaster, and they have fantasy-based designs. Speaking during a no-clip documentary, Naughty Dog's audio director for part 1, Neil Yukitel, said that realism and sound is very difficult to recreate faithfully because when you do it incorrectly it's immediately noticeable. But when you're working on a big game that involves magic or sort of hyper-realism in a really substantial way, it's easy to hide behind big sound. Yukitel's last comment has been picked up by some Resetera users and they believe could be tied to Naughty Dog's upcoming project, presumably a new fantasy-based IP. What would you like Naughty Dog's next project to be? Voice your opinion in the comments. FTC dissatisfied with Microsoft and UK developers support the merger. Time for an update on the Microsoft Activision acquisition and the future of Call of Duty. According to Axios' Stephen Totilo, the FTC's lawyers are dissatisfied with the documents Microsoft has or has not disclosed in the lead-up to the trial over the Activision deal. They are now asking for more on the ZeniMax exclusivity plans based on the FTC saying Microsoft backtracked on their promises before buying the company and may do it again with Activision. The FTC wants more on their next-gen plans as well, although they may not define next-gen as we know it, so they are likely just asking for future Microsoft plans and not their next system. And lastly, they also want actual details on their 10-year Call of Duty deals given to several companies including Nintendo and Nvidia, since without that information they shouldn't be allowed to use this as a defense. Microsoft made some moves with contract negotiations this week, offering 10-year deals to cloud providers in Europe and Japan, such as Boosteroid and Ubisoft respectively. The latter is responsible for Nintendo Switch cloud ports such as Control, Guardians of the Galaxy, and more. Sony and Microsoft are said not to be in any type of negotiations as of right now, as Microsoft President Brad Smith confirmed to the Wall Street Journal. Meanwhile, in the UK, the CMA has published 6 responses from development studios as part of their investigation. All of them were supportive of the Microsoft Activision merger, praising Microsoft for honoring previous agreements, indicating consumer preference is across a wide variety of genres and platforms, so exclusives are not a must-have. Another suggested it's better to have Microsoft rather than Tencent, which would be less subject to Western regulation. One found the arguments against the deal to be slightly exaggerated and out of proportion, while one thought it was too early to predict exact effects, and the last we'll cover in the next story. In the same documentation, Sony said it can compete against the loss of Call of Duty in terms of gameplay hours, revenue, or budget spent on building its own exclusives, not even with Destiny, which has fewer gameplay hours and game spent than Call of Duty, although percentages were redacted. They also revealed that in the last 10 years, Call of Duty was the top-selling game on both PS4 and PS5, more than any PlayStation exclusive, with only Vanguard being the exception, but even then it managed to beat Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto 5, and FIFA 22 in positive gameplay. Sony also thinks PlayStation Plus is behind Xbox Game Pass as a competitor, pointing out to Elder Scrolls 6 and Call of Duty possibly being exclusive to the service in the future. And in the case of the latter, Microsoft could manipulate licensing costs, making Call of Duty on Plus commercially unviable. The fact that Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be Xbox exclusive is said to be one of Sony's reasons for not trusting Microsoft for Call of Duty deals, since they can make future games exclusive like Starfield or Elder Scrolls. Both of these were announced in 2018 and were not expected at the time to be Xbox exclusives only after Microsoft acquired ZeniMax. Microsoft sees all Sony's arguments as a self-serving attempt to protect its dominant market position, rather than concerns over access to Call of Duty, which they could have secured months ago. This fight is getting really heated and the reports for today are not over, but what do you think about these updates? Let us know in the comments. Sony accused of burying smaller games. There's more on the Microsoft Activision case. This is one of the developer comments as part of the UK CMA investigation, where an anonymous developer accused Sony of burying smaller games. The developer was identified as market participant E, who primarily focuses on releasing games for various platforms including Xbox and PlayStation. They indicated that despite PlayStation having the lion's share of player numbers and console sales, that share is mainly provided to larger titles from huge publishing labels and other developers and publishers who are willing to spend lots of money on paid marketing within the PlayStation console. Adding to that, they mentioned that smaller titles rarely appear organically to PlayStation users in the store, and they have to know the game beforehand to search for it, unlike the Xbox Marketplace where they have a section for smaller games plus Game Pass. As a result, their games sell just as well if not better on Xbox than PlayStation, even if the latter has more users. They pointed out the Activision acquisition will not make Xbox the dominant platform all of a sudden, but far more likely it may help to create a level playing field between Xbox and PlayStation, which is sorely needed. They believe PlayStation needs better competition to force the platform to up its game, and this will surely help do that. This is not the first time the Japanese company has been accused of this, since developers complained in June 2021 that the company charges 25 grand for store visibility, with Sony promising later that year that they wanted to repair relationships and tools for indie partners. I think Sony does a great job of highlighting key indie games such as Kena, Sifu or Stray, elevating them with their own first-party titles, but this is a Sony that is far from the one during the PS3 and especially the PS4 era, which would do indie montages of lots of games coming to the platforms. While having a bunch of indies put together hurt more than help, they need to find a way to support these developers who don't have the marketing budget to spend, as the PlayStation platform often finds itself behind Xbox and Nintendo Switch in getting many indie games. An example could be an indie-only state of play instead of revealing indie games on a bunch of tweets and improve visibility on the store. What do you think about the current state of indies on PlayStation? Sound off in the comments. Sony has an exclusive Superman game? The last update derived from the Microsoft Activision case is a funny one, since Microsoft claims Sony has an exclusive Superman game. Also, as part of the UK CMA findings, a Microsoft reply references an undisclosed percentage of how Xbox consoles are impacted by PlayStation exclusive releases, as part of proof to make their case that there has never been evidence that exclusivity of a single franchise can drive console sales. And they say this applies to big titles like God of War or Superman. And no, Sony doesn't have an exclusive Superman game released or in development as far as rumors go, but since Spider-Man is then referenced several other times within the document, this is just a funny typo from the lawyer who redacted this. What do you think about this funny mistake from Microsoft lawyers? Share your thoughts in the comments. Time for a round of quickfire gaming news. Mortal Kombat creator Ed Boon has said he doesn't want Ellie in the upcoming Mortal Kombat 12, as he doesn't want to see fatalities on her. This is in reply to a Twitter user requesting her as a playable character, likely due to the connection with the game series after the HBO show. Speaking of the HBO show, if you wanted to have a physical copy of the amazing adaptation, it will release this July 17 on 4K UHD, Blu-ray and DVD, going for £40, £30 and £25 respectively. Pre-orders are only available on Amazon UK at the time of recording. PlayStation executive and head of indies Shuhei Yoshida is being recognized for his contribution to the industry at this year's BAFTA Game Awards ceremony to be held on March 30. The BAFTA Fellowship Award celebrates significant contributions to creative arts, with other recipients being Shigeru Miyamoto, Hideo Kojima, John Carmack, and Siobhan Reddy from Media Molecule. The beloved PlayStation executive jumped on Twitter to say it's an incredible honor, as he's had the fortune to be able to work with so many creative, passionate game developers throughout his career. Congratulations to Shuhei Yoshida on his amazing accomplishment. Resident Evil 4 will apparently have Ada's Separate Ways campaign, but as a separate DLC according to popular leaker Dos Golem. He posted on Resetera that the mode, which expands on the RE4 events from Ada's perspective, will be down the line DLC and will be longer and more fleshed out than the original. Golem also said that unlike RE Village, where Capcom didn't have DLC plans until after seeing the reception of the game, Resident Evil 4 has a roadmap for DLC. Capcom previously also indicated that the Mercenaries mode will be added to the game as free DLC post-launch, but unclear if Ada's campaign would be paid or free. Konami has filed a trademark for Project Circon in Japan as of March 7, reported by Gematsu. Circon is a valuable jewel you can sell in Castlevania games, which links this as a Castlevania project, but there's nothing else as to what this entails, if it's a AAA game or another Konami effort toward NFTs or Pachinko Machine. The company, however, is rumored to bring a Castlevania game to E3 this year. As covered at the beginning, Ghostwire Tokyo is coming to the PS Plus game catalog. The exclusivity window is also ending, which means it's getting released on Xbox and Game Pass. With that, Bethesda and Tango Gameworks have announced the Spider's Thread update, adding a new game mode, new locations in the main campaign, new challenges and an expanded photo mode, all free for all users. Developer Iron Gate and publisher Coffee Stain have confirmed that PC hit Valheim will not be coming to PS5 for the time being. This was from an interview with senior developer Jonathan Smars on the Xbox Expansion Pass podcast, where he said their team is only looking at Xbox and it will debut on Game Pass. He didn't shut the door though, as he also said that you never know, indicating there's a chance, and it's likely there could be an Xbox deal or simply a small developer focusing on one platform at a time. Forspoken was dubbed a failure after Square Enix said it didn't meet their expectations, and it's a huge one since apparently the game cost $100 million to make. The info comes from the game's lead writer Alison Reimer, who lists the game in her LinkedIn account as a fantasy AAA video game with over $100 million budget. That's to the dismay of fans who don't believe the game had that kind of budget after its quality was put in question by fans and the press alike. Ubisoft is celebrating the Far Cry 5 5th anniversary by adding a long-requested feature from current-gen console owners, 60 FPS. The patch is available now and it also boosts the resolution on PS5 with dynamic 4K. The game is part of the PS Plus game catalog, but it's also free to play from March 23rd to the 27th on all platforms. Hogwarts Legacy continues to dominate in sales and now has added a new milestone to the list. The game has now surpassed the total physical and digital sales of Elden Ring in the UK in little over a month since release. And that's considering that it has just been released on 3 platforms, with PS4 and Switch coming up later this year. EA and Criterion have announced a Volume 2 content update for Need for Speed Unbound, which adds new race types, cars, upgrades, events, challenges, cosmetics, and new ways to interact with your friends. It comes out on March 21st and is free for everyone, but there's a $5 DLC that marks the location of all collectibles in the game, plus a new clothing pack. And those are the PlayStation stories for today. What are your thoughts on them? Share them in the comments below, let me know your feedback by liking or disliking this video, check out other videos you may enjoy while you're here, and consider subscribing for more on PlayStation. Thank you so much for watching, my name is Joseph, this is Hype for Games, and let's get hype!